welcome, welcome everyone. Let me invite everyone to take a big deep breath. Bring yourself present. And you might be thinking about what's the best thing that's happened to you so far today? And anybody who wants to share that in the chat or unmute yourself and let us know what's the best thing that's happened to you today. I can imagine. So here we are, introducing this masterclass on what clients know that might help us in our endeavors as coaches, clients, and professional sellers, so to speak, or anyone who's carrying a revenue or an income goal that you might find helpful. And the reason that being here today is so special for me is that my involvement with the 14 Flips and the Client School goes back about 8 years. And one thing that I can report as a product of the learning around just going from selling, switching from selling to having an orientation towards the client, with the experience using the skills to go from mainly speaking in business development conversations to mainly listening, has paid off in spades. And so for the last 8 years since acquiring these skills, exceeding revenue and income promises that I have to myself and to others year over year, and probably even as important, doing it by working with clients that are a really good match for me. And what do I mean by that? They say they get value. I say I get satisfaction and value. And I can't think of any outcome that could be any better than that. And so as we learn these two skills that Chris and Dwayne are going to share with us today, I'd just like for you for a minute, and if you've got a pencil or a pen or some kind of writing instrument, it feels like it's an archaeological dig to find a pencil these days, but anyway, something to jot down. What is it that you would like to be celebrating for yourself, for your team perhaps, for your family, and for your business 8 or 9 months from now, say end of 2025. I'm going to be quiet for 30 seconds, which is a really big thing for me, as you jot down what you would love to be celebrating 8 months, 9 months down the road. And when you've got that, just going to connect super briefly to our topic today, which is what clients tell us on a regular basis, and we've been doing these listening tours for a number of years now, that they really appreciate in the marketplace today. You see, many of them tell us that they don't know who to trust anymore. There's so much noise out there. And what they say is that they prefer to work with those professionals who really get them. And when we unpack that, what do they mean? They say that they mean, hey, understand the future I'm trying to create, understand the outcomes that I'm committed to, that I've given my word to, and understand why that's important to me. And so what we're going to be working on today is exactly that. How can we become the embodiment of that capability to really, really connect? And so with that, let me introduce our speakers today, co-founder of the Client School, Dwayne Spivey, and growth coach, trusted colleague, and really good friend, Chris Beauchamp. So sending it over to you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. You know, I'm delighted just by the fact that somebody can pronounce a French last name correctly. So thank you for that. Thank you all for joining. And wonderful to be with each of you here today and unpack some learning. We have some folks from a past life, a generative community of folks, some names that I recognize there and some that are new. One of the things that I'll highlight here that many of you may have seen when you signed up for this masterclass is that it was oriented towards coaches. What I will add here is that this is actually for really all client-facing professionals. So where you see some references to coaches, I invite you to put yourself in there. Your firm, you're a consultant, whatever the case may be, you can insert that there. And I'm going to be passing this off to Dwayne here in just a little bit, but I want to kind of get us kicked off. And Barbara did so with some great questions, some questions that we're getting some answers in the chat. Thank you, by the way, for the answers that you all are putting in there. I love some of the answers. Mike, getting a patched wall taken care of is sometimes a huge accomplishment. So thank you for putting some fun shares in there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and make sure that we're seeing the same thing here. So just real quick, but I show of thumbs here for what I can see. Can you see my screen okay? Yep, looks like yes. Okay, I see a couple thumbs. I'm only seeing so many faces right now. So perfect. All right. So I'm going to kick this off here with a question. And the question that I'm going to put up here, I'm going to invite you all to take it a little bit deeper than you might normally. A lot of times what we find is with questions, sometimes we have a default answer or we have some kind of semblance of an answer. And this time around, I'm going to invite you to take the question, maybe go a little bit deeper, explore with it. And as we go through this learning, continue to reflect with this question. I think it'll add a lot of value for you as you explore both in this masterclass, but then as you carry this forward into your work as a coach, a consultant, if you have a marketing agency, I know we have some marketing folks here, really explore that question. So the question that I offer for each of you is, what's your offer? And think about that a little bit. Now, we might say, I know what my offer is, but let me add a little bit here to make this fun. Why do clients say they hire you? Now notice, I didn't say what do you think clients hire you for? What did they say are the reasons they hire you? And it's funny, I've asked many folks, including executives, this question, and they say, I don't know what they say. If you know, great. If you're not sure, it's an opportunity. Another question you could ask is, what do they want? With those two questions, why do clients say they hire you? Or what do they want? Are the answers to those the same as what you say your offer is? Sometimes there's some discrepancies, or sometimes there's some learning in that. So these are just some questions to kind of kick us off, to set a little context. We're going to be exploring a little bit more of the voice of the client here in just a bit, but I'll add a little bit more context before we get over to Dwayne here and get into where this comes from. Now, Barbara talked a little bit about listening tours. The listening tours are something that we conduct every year. And we interview clients of different disciplines, industries, or different geographies, if you will, with different offers. And we do it with hundreds every year. I think even Dwayne, Gary, you guys could say you've probably over the years interviewed thousands of clients and clients of their clients, to be fair. So this is not us having an opinion. This is actually saying, like, we're being curious about clients. What do they have to say? So we ask questions like, well, client, what is it like to be you? Or what is it like to be a client? Or what is it like to be courted by a coach, a consultant, or maybe another vendor? Now, for last year, we added a question. And again, this is going to be an added example where if you're not a coach, no sweat. Say, I'm a marketing consultant, swap the word. But what do you look for when you are hiring a coach or a consultant? And some of the answers that you'll find aren't necessarily exactly what they're looking for, but what they notice. And in a way, what they notice is in fact what they want. So as we explored with them, what they would say to us is that there's so many people and coaches, and it's funny, coaches are brilliant in their craft and they ask great questions, but sometimes, at least according to clients, they tell us what to value instead of asking us what we value. And even as coaches can sometimes talk about ourselves, maybe a little bit too much. We talk about our process, the coaching process, we talk about the solution, the product, and that's what they share. As a result, they say it's really difficult to tell vendors apart. Now, you can look on paper and say, yeah, they look pretty good. They're qualified, they're smart people, but because they all speak and listen the same way, they all sound and look the same. So I noted those questions at the beginning. Again, as we continue on, just kind of continue to marinate in those questions, reflect on that as we're sharing some of the listening from these listening tours. Now, the result of that is they're saying it's harder than any time in our careers to figure out who to trust with our future. And that's big. Now, it doesn't mean that people aren't choosing a vendor or a coach. It sometimes means they're just choosing the best option that they have available, but it's still quite difficult for them. So how do clients choose? Well, what they tell us is that they choose the one that took the time to get to know them, to really show interest and learn about them. They had this just immense amount of curiosity. And I know with some of you on this call, we've had some of these conversations about that. How do we notice that? And some of you might be very gifted. I know coaches, that's something that we have to engage in when we're actually doing our good work with clients. And sometimes it falls by the wayside when we're in the courting process. Now, what's interesting about this is that, we think sometimes, gosh, I'm pretty good about showing I care, that I'm really trying to get to know them. But according to clients, when we're talking to them, only about 5% actually show up this way, like truly without an agenda, without like trying to bring in their solution, showing up as I'm here for you. And that's according to them. So this could be really a huge opportunity. If you're currently doing it, great. And if not, well, that might be an opportunity to explore for yourself. And there's another interesting statistic I was just looking up this morning that may add a little bit more relevance or depth to that comment. And it's the average win rate worldwide. Does anyone have some thoughts, if you want to put into the chat, what you think the average win rate is worldwide, like for offers being made out there? You just put a percentage in there, and it kind of ranges, to be quite honest, but there's an average win rate out there. Let's see if I open up the 10%, Barbara's thrown out there. Okay. Andres, less than 10%. Thank you for that. Okay. The B to 10% depends on the lead source. Megan, very, very, very true. There's some good points in there. So less than 10%, Catherine. A lot of 10%. Well, depends on the source, but a lot of what I'm seeing there's about 21%. So maybe not too bad, but on the other hand, you could say it's a 79% irrelevancy rate, meaning the offers we're making out there are not relevant for 79% of the folks out there. Now, if your win rate's different, great. Whatever that win rate is, the other part of that is probably the irrelevancy rate. And there's other factors into that, but it's just something to consider. So I'll let you all pause with that. Now, and I'll pause myself and see if there's any comments on that, any quick questions, and then I'm going to hand this off to Dwayne to carry us through. Everybody doing all right? If you want to give a thumbs up, we're doing good so far.
Chris, quick question.
Yeah, Mike, please.
I was surprised that it was that high, but how important is the discovery process in your world? Really understanding the client.
Well, This is, you know, and I actually go back to what clients say. They say it's important and that it helps them choose. So if clients are sharing this and what it's like to be them, and that it's rare to find somebody that really gets them, I would say it's absolutely critical, because you want to have that deep, rich sense that somebody's really there for you, that they really care. And it's hard to, when you're first courting somebody, to be in discovery. But we can also notice our own tendencies to be quick to insert ourselves or offer our solutions, as opposed to really stay in this posture of curiosity. And it shows. People know. Have you all ever been in conversations, you kind of see what's going on for the other person, and it's almost like the gears are clicking and they're generating their response to what you're saying. You can kind of tell they're kind of halfway there with you. Everybody, like, raise a hand. See, anybody ever notice that in a conversation?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. We're human beings. This happens.
Yeah.
But we also notice when that doesn't show up. So yeah, Gary.
Just a couple of comments. One, I just want to give a word to what you're describing. You know, the 20% win rate or 10% win rate, 90% irrelevant most of the time. That's normal. In hundreds of years of selling, you know, 2 out of 10 ain't bad. And so what we're doing in the client school, Advocates for Clients, is challenging that. And I love your question about discovery. Voice to the client, if you don't do good to discovery with me, and now you make me an offer, how could that offer possibly be aligned to what I care about? So please listen more to fully understand me before you make offers. And one last comment we've learned at client school is that offers tend to come to clients prematurely 90% of the time, because the sellers are so eager to speak about their offer. So just thought I'd add that.
Yep. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Good point.
Dwayne, I'm gonna hand it off to you. I realize we got going here a little bit late, but we still have a good solid 25 minutes to unpack.
Thanks. So in addition to the listening we did with clients this year, Chris and I went out and we talked to coaches. So we wanted to listen to coaches. And it turned out there were some themes that started showing up, which was interesting to us because it was across different disciplines and different coaches, and you know, everybody says they're doing something different. But one of the things what really showed up first was the discomfort with sales and making offers. That we heard that quite a bit. And the other one was generating leads and new conversations. Articulating a coaching value was one that came up quite often. Networking and outreach discomfort, not as much, but it did come up sometimes. Consistency in business development. I think anybody who's been in the coaching world or consulting world for any amount of time has experienced that. I know I have. Positioning coaching as a strategic solution is one that came up. And then navigating pricing conversations. So those were all, we heard those quite a bit during our listening tour. And so one of the things that we wanted to share today is we want to cover 2 of those in today's session. So we're going to cover the discomfort with sales and marketing and articulating your coaching value. So those are the 2 that we really wanted to explore with you today and share what we've learned. So let's talk about the first one. Discomfort with sales and marketing. Being more comfortable with making offers. So one thing I'll tell you is, and share with you, is that each one of these that we talk about today requires a reorientation of what you're doing and how you're listening and where you're moving in the world. And so we'll unpack that a little bit in just a moment. But the two skills that we wanted to talk about, or actually it's three, is the shift from selling to serving. And then inside of that, listening to the client's story of care, and then speaking your offer so that it's 100% relevant to the client every time. And that last one, what Gary and I have experienced in our years of doing this, is that win rates go from that 20% to 90%. And we see it happen over and over and over and over. Gary had one client who went to 100%, but he and I thought that if we said that, nobody would believe us. So let's unpack the first one, talk about what we're doing there. So orientation. You want to change it, Chris?
Yep, sure. Hold on. Sorry. I had two recorders. Apologies.
So reorientation. Each of these skills requires reorientation to how you approach and view business development. And so the whole thing about stop selling and start serving is a mantra that we've heard from clients the last 3 years when we've done our listening tour is, I just want somebody that can come in and serve me and take care of me and help me. Please don't sell me your widget, your thing, your product. But we find that so many people come in and do that. And it's a reorientation in one instance from what we found and what we share with people at the client school is going from listening first instead of speaking first. So many people speak their offer and their value, we got our value proposition, before they ever listen to the client and what they're saying they value. So once that's one of the first things we talk about is how do you reorient yourself to being of service instead of selling. So the piece about shifting from selling to serving and your orientation is when people, and especially clients, come in, they can feel when they're being sold. And Gary and I have experienced this. We've had years ago when we first started, we've actually had people tell us, excuse me, are you selling me? Would you please stop that? Please stop selling me. And, let's talk about serving. And one of the things that we see is there are sales practices that you have to unlearn in order to serve clients. And part of being of service to clients is being able to work with them on what it is they care about and what it is they want instead of our agenda. So there's two orientations that we can take when we're talking about working with clients. We can either have a you-centric orientation. I'm here for me. I'm here to sell something. I have a great product. Any of those kinds of situations. So we can do the I'm here for me, or we can switch it and say, I'm here for you. And the other person's centric or client-centric approach is what clients tell us they really enjoy, because it's all about them instead of all about the person who's there trying to sell their widget, product, service, coaching package, whatever it is that they're selling. So I just want to take a second before we move forward. Questions about that, like thoughts? How are you guys doing with that? Because that's a big thing that we hear from people is I can't stop selling. So, Mike.
Dwayne, what would be the number one thing that I would have to unlearn?
Oh gosh, the number one. Well, there's 10 of them.
I didn't know. I haven't seen the next slide, but
no, it's not. No, I would say it's the sales mentality of I'm here to close people. We hear that all the time. It's a close is a win, and I'm here for me instead of what's the client's agenda. That's one way that we speak it, is we ask people, are you here on your agenda? I've got a product I want to sell you. Or are you here for the client's agenda and to find out what it is they want? So that's one of the top things that we see all the time.
Just to Dwayne's point about find out what you want. Can you imagine if a client asks you, why are you here? I know I invited you here, but why did you come? And that your response is, I came to learn. And if you'd like to learn about me and my coaching firm or my consulting firm, whatever, I'm happy to do that as well. But I came to learn versus I came to fill in the blank. Orientation shift.
Yeah. Anybody else? Mike, did that take care of it?
We have some other questions too, Dwayne. We can hold off on those if you want.
No, if you got one more, you want to throw it out there?
Yeah, Catherine, I'm going to come back to yours. I'm going to go to Kate. So she's asking, because I think it's probably relevant to what you were just speaking about. If a business owner has given me 20 minutes and I start with the exploration and getting to know questions and they want to know what my bottom line is, what do I do? They don't want me to get to know them in 75% of the cases. They want their pain point to go away. Once I get there and we start to address their issue, do I get the opportunity to learn about their business?
Well, so there's a couple of things there. One, we've trained clients to do that. That's one of the things that people say. The other one is in the client school, one of the things we talk about is drawing out their care. So an exploration doesn't need to take like a learning about them or going deep with them or any of that stuff. Doesn't need to take more than 2 or 3 minutes. It's 1 or 2 questions. What's the outcome you've committed to produce in the next 12 months? That right there will tell you a lot. So it's not like a full discovery and I'm going to take you through my process. No, it's drawing out using questions to see what it is the client's looking for. So when they say, what's your bottom line? It's like, I don't know my bottom line until you tell me what it is you care about. It's kind of like, going into a car dealership before you know what kind of car you want and say, what's the price? Does that make sense?
Kate, if you want to type into the chat, or you can take yourself off mute too, because that was your question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, my product, if you will, is just a little bit different. So typically when we get a phone call, it is to terminate somebody. So I have somebody who's drinking on the job. So then, I need to look at ADA issues or employment law issues and that kind of thing. So things are clipping along very quickly. What we do when we get the phone call, so we're out there, we're networking, and people know what we do, but typically we're getting referred because somebody's in pain and they just want this employee to go away, right? And so then we just kind of jump into, all right, tell me about the employee, tell me about the situation. So I think you and I are saying the same thing. It's just, I don't show up on the doorstep necessarily selling anything, although, we talk about it at networking events. But people just want the pain to go away, whatever their pain is. So whether it is, payment processing issue or an employee issue, they're in pain and they just want you to fix it. And so that's what we spend our time doing, is fixing.
So if I may, just an advanced skill, and clients say they're never asked this question, but just in the situation you're describing, saying, interesting, how are you thinking of solving it? So it's a really
we do that. They're really looking for what's legal, what can I do, what can't I do, what are the Colorado laws. So that's where they're at.
Yeah.
I think we're saying a lot of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, if the client's telling you what it is they want, okay, I mean, fine. You gotta listen to them and take care of them. So I think it's the same situation, just different questions.
Yeah. Just as a talent leader of many years, just one question to add there. Is there anything unique about your culture? So yes, there's the state laws and all that stuff, but this is an example of being curious and trying to understand when you let people go in this culture, how does that go? How do you want that to go? Even if they don't answer, you're showing interest and curiosity in them versus it's a 3-step process. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? So when I think of culture, I'm in a, trucking company and they're under DOT regs, right?
Yep.
So those are the things that business owner is going to want to know about. And, make sure that those things are covered. Yeah, I think, we talk about how you're going to deliver this message to your other staff. What are the things you need to care about? Who's going to be the most impacted? What are the emotionality of, your organization? So those are certainly things that we address in the process.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
let's keep going.
yeah, we can come back to that. Let's if it's okay with you, we'll come back and pick up a little bit, just maybe so we can kind of get through some other things. And yeah, happy to unpack that a little bit.
So the next thing we heard from clients, this was especially this last year in 2024. The way it shows up is before you come in and speak your offer or tell us your value proposition, would you please find out what we value, or ask us what we value, or ask us what kind of help that we're looking for, or anything like that. So that's a shift from, let me tell you my value prop. I'm this and this and this and this in the offer in the world, and starting with, tell me what it is that you value. What's important to you? What are you committed to? So that's a second piece of the shift from selling to serving. So find out what they value before you tell them what your offer is, because you may not have a match. Okay, the second piece of this is what we call listening for the client story of care. One of the things that we hear from students quite often is, how do you listen? And I always say that there's a more powerful question. And the question is, what do you listen for? And this is what we call listening for story, especially the client's story. So what this is about is drawing out the other person's story of care first before you make any requests or offers to them for anything. And what we've discovered over the years is that when you do this, your acceptance rate goes way up. Years ago, when Gary and I started doing this, we found that our success rate went sky high. We've made I would hesitate to say we've made a lot of money with this one. And so the listening for story is everybody has a story. Every client has a story. Everyone has, this is how we want it to go in the future. And so there's a piece of that I'll just give you the abbreviated piece of it today. Is there's 4 elements to doing this. And the first one, did I skip one, Chris? Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Go ahead. Go to the next one.
All right.
No, that's all right. I skipped it. So when we talk about drawing out the client story, it requires curiosity. And when people, if they're not curious, it's difficult to make anybody who's not curious an offer, even though we try to do it. The other thing is people are so taught to look for buzzwords and then launch into their offer that we make the offer too soon. And that's what Gary was referring to earlier, is that we see this happen quite often. I was coaching a firm this morning, and that was the first thing that showed up is, oh, well, we know that they need this, and so we're going to make them an offer. It's like, oh, are you sure? Did we check? Did the client say that? So, what's the future that you're committed to producing in X amount of time? That's typically a question we always ask people because it gets right to the root of what's going on. And so the way that shows up is the 4 elements start this thing out. So if you're staying in curiosity and you don't launch into your pitch or your story of this is how it's going to go or anything like that, we find that when we're working with clients and when we talk to people, when you understand and you have these 4 elements before you making your offer, your success rate goes way up. And so simply put, there's the context, right? What's the client's current situation? What are they doing? What's happening in their world today? The second one is their commitment. What are they committed to producing? Not what do they want? What do they dream of? What do they hope happens? Like, what are they committed to producing? And by when? And then the second piece of commitments is what are they already committed to doing? I got to know if you're already committed to not using coaches or not using this firm, then I got to know that before I look to make you an offer. So what are your commitments? The third one is conditions of satisfaction. And everybody has their conditions of satisfaction. One of the things that we experience quite often is we'll have students tell us clients don't know what their conditions of satisfaction are. And what Gary and I found over the years is they absolutely do. They just don't trust you enough to tell you. That's pretty common. It happens a lot. So knowing conditions of satisfaction. And then what we call the FTSOW, for the sake of what? Care. For the sake of what are you doing this? Whatever it is. What's going on in your world that's triggered us to have a conversation today? Everybody has something going on in their world that made you say, I'm going to take 45 minutes and listen to this. It wasn't just because I'm a nice guy, even though I am. So what do they care about? What's the future they want? And we find that when you learn these 4 things about a client, these 4 elements, when you put them together, generally clients will tell you exactly what they want to buy and how they want it to go. And so it becomes much easier to serve them, and you're not selling as much and making proposals, which we've found over the years, and we've learned that proposals are guesses.
I just want to add, highlight the 2 words that are not on the screen, the words needs and problems. Those are very common language that 100 out of 100 salespeople use. And the quote of the year last year in the listening tour from a client is like, what do I look like to outsiders? A bag of problems? They all want to know what my problems are. I asked them why, and they said, because I'm a problem solver. Like, that's a unique thing to say. So this is very deliberately positive, like commitment instead of problems. How do you want your latte? It's like, how do you want your latte? Not what annoys you. And then the highest elevation is care, what matters most.
Yeah.
Real quick, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, I do see your hand raised. Are you okay if we wait a little bit to the end and check in? I promise we'll come back to yours and other questions here. We'll kind of get through this. I want to honor people's time since we have just a few minutes left here, but we can continue on for sure. I'll stay on for sure.
Yeah, I can. The thing we always say that we've learned over the years is that concerns, if you only get the concerns or the pain somebody's in, you never get the whole story. So concerns never show up until care does. Always first. So learning what they care about is up elevator, as we call it, in the mood, and speaks to a whole bunch more, like let's go in a whole bunch more places. All right, so once you've listened, we're talking about articulating your offer and what you do. So one of the things that we talk about here is speaking your offer so it's 100% relevant to the client. And how this will show up sometimes is the client will say, yes, this is what I'm interested in. You'll say, yeah, but there's another product that we have that we think you might be interested in. And it just, it goes off the rails from there. And so when you're speaking 100% relevant, what we do is talk about speaking in terms of outcomes, not your process, your service, or your product. So clients want the outcome. They don't want the process or the service. I don't go get a mortgage because I want a mortgage. I want a home. I have to get a mortgage to get the home. So mortgage companies talk about the home you want. They don't talk about the mortgage you want. It's the same thing as there's a professor who passed away recently from Harvard who used to don't sell the 1/4-inch drill, sell the 1/4-inch hole, or offer the 1/4-inch hole. So we find that most people lead with, here's how I can help you, or here's the process, instead of this is the outcome you want. And speaking the outcome, it's pretty simple as to the way it shows up. It's a formula that we learned a few years ago. And it looks like this. You want to switch it, Chris, please? Because you want X, we offer Y. Because you need to fire someone, or you need to call your herd, or you need whatever it is that you're doing, we offer services that help you do that by X, by doing this. So when you say, because you want X, we offer Y, this helps with the be more comfortable, because it lets the client go where they want to go instead of, oh, this is where I want you to go. And it offers them a way to get there. So one that I'll do an example of one that we use quite often, because especially when we talk to VPs of sales, because you want a 30% increase in revenue over the next 2 years, we offer learning that helps people by using uncommon skills to help you get there. Because we offer. Instead of, we offer this that helps you do this. We put the client first. Any questions there, or thoughts or comments? Or I'm not able to see the chat, so.
Yeah, we had a number of questions. I'm going to kind of go in backwards order, if that's okay. And
yeah, that's fine.
If you had some questions in the chat, I did see that for everyone. So please hang out. We'll hang out with you. We have the extra time. I do, definitely. And if I may, I'm going to go back to Kevin. You were up there last with your hand raised up, and that'll give me a chance to look back through the questions in the chat. So Kevin, if you're still there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think you answered this question. I was more curious about how do you draw out commitment? What are some example questions that you ask to kind of draw out what the commitment of the client is?
Well, one of them is what results do you want to see in the next 12 months?
Okay.
What outcomes are you looking for? There's it's a specific structure for speaking it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to, what do you care about? It's like, let's get to the, what is it that you want? Because whenever somebody will tell you what it is they're after, what leads to it at some point is, do you have the help you need to get there?
Mm-hmm. So the care, or the what it is that what matters most is found in the answer to that question, without asking them that specific question. right?
Yeah. And Gary, correct me. I don't think we've ever asked that question when we're in meetings with people, and they said, "We don't want to tell you."
Yeah.
I've never had somebody, and we've had students tell us, and people who've gone through the course, they'll say, "I can't ask my client that. That would be rude."
Well, just a couple other words to offer. You can say what result is being asked of you, or you mentioned your CFO. I'm just curious, what commitment have you made to the CFO to accomplish what by when? And then just let it just sit there for a minute, and they answer and they go, and along the way, what is it that you care about most?
Yeah.
And they'll answer, oh, we can't have any noise here. We can't blow the budget. We get one chance to do this right. They'll give you an emotional response. That's what care does.
Yeah.
Is the difference of asking what's most important, which goes to the brain and logic.
Yeah.
Care is below the neck.
Yeah. Which is where decisions are made, by the way.
Hmm.
Did that take care of you?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Chris, other ones?
Yeah, before I do, I'm just acknowledge we're really a little past time here. So, we've covered a number of different things. I'm going to come back to the questions here. We're staying on. We've covered just at a high level here, and we can definitely go deeper, but you're looking at your orientation towards clients. And this is where I go back to the question at the beginning, and really an honest, deep reflection for yourself. Am I really here for the client? Do I notice the voice kind of start to chime in and offer suggestions or want to make an offer or something else other than really being there with them? And that goes into listening to what they really care about, their client's story of care, and continue to unpack that. And like Simon Sinek's 5 Whys, you could use something like that, but really going deeper with what that means, much like Gary and Dwayne have illustrated here with some of those questions. And then speaking your offer and noticing how Dwayne puts what the client cares about up front so you don't bury the lead, and your offers in response to what they care about or what they want to take care of. So with that, if you've found this, I know for some of you might have to drop off. Some of you already dropped off. I know you had some other commitments. Thank you for being on. We're staying on. If you found this relevant and you want to explore a little bit further, I'm going to leave my information up here, and I'll go ahead and continue. I'll add my contact information in the chat. Reach out to me. We can have a conversation. We'll take the conversation in the direction you want to go. And with that, I'm going to come back to some of the other questions. I think Catherine, if you're still on, she had asked, and I can't see. Let me stop my screen. Well, I won't stop my screen share because I'm sharing my screen for a purpose. But Catherine, if you're still on there and you want to join in, you'd asked about the close rates, and it's supposed to, that not surprised that it's high for coaches, and really this is kind of across the board, by the way. It is, it's between HubSpot and there's a couple other sources out there that are saying it's like 20 to 30%. And in certain industries, it's actually a lot less. In fact, some of the sources that I found were saying for professional services, it's 13%. So
Yeah.
A little bit lower for sure. Your guess, Catherine, was pretty much on par, but you asked, I said, you said the rate may be higher depending on how narrow your focus is as a coach, and really for anyone else out here. Curious if that makes a difference in terms of like how narrow. Am I understanding that right, Catherine?
Yeah, I was just curious, because I think I can have a high rate if I'm in a very narrow niche, if I go broader. But I was just curious if that matters at all.
Well, so one thing I'll say there, Catherine, is instead of narrow, the way we help people at the client school is to find your perfect client fit. And when you found what your perfect client fit is, and you speak to those clients who already are believers, that's one of the elements that helps your win ratio and your success ratio go up. Because if you're talking to someone who doesn't like coaching of any kind, like, why even talk to them? So once you know what you're looking for in your perfect client fit, it makes it a lot easier. Whether you've got a narrow whether you're a broad offer or a narrow offer.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. That's how I was thinking about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Other ones, Chris?
All right. See. Mark added a comment here in terms of some of the questions you get asked, and you might have some comments on this. And I think it was a nice comment here, the question you can ask. So what do you need to put on your annual review with your boss this year? And this is what he asks clients. So similar to what you care about, you can go a little bit more specific in that way. And I don't know, Dwayne, Gary, if you want to comment on that, and let me go back and look at some of our other comments and questions.
Well, so I would reorient that question, because I've done this with some people when working with sales leaders and their sales teams, is find out, instead of what do you need to put on your annual report, what have you committed to your boss this year that you've produced? So what was your commitment specifically, instead of what do you need to put on your annual review? Because when you get to commitment and making a promise, it goes much further. It means a lot more rather than, oh, I just told him I'd do this and this and this. Those are my goals. I've got my goals and my stretch goals and then my really stretch goals. It's like, no, what's your promise? What's your commitment? And I used to, when I would run organization sales teams, and I would always get I'd ask the question, what do you want your W-2 to look like next year? And they go, between X and Y. And I'd go, oh, this is a person who isn't sure what they want. And then I'd have some people that say, I'm going to make $178,000 next year. Great. Here's what you'll need to do that. Are you ready to commit? It cleans things up, and what we call, it gets flat, gets clean real quick. So I just orient to commitment instead of what do you have to say or what do you want?
Thank you, Wayne. So there's another question, Mike, if you don't mind me, I don't know if you're still on here. Let me, Mike Dolberg, if he might have stepped off here, but he asked a great question that I think is relevant here, and maybe Dwayne, Gary, you can chime in on this. And he asked, is there a different balance between you-centric and others person-centric if you know you are competing against other providers? So like the balance of like, how much am I being client-centric or other person-centric versus how much am I being me-centric?
Well, is there a balance?
I have a thought, but I'd love to hear what you.
So here's the one thing I would say is if you try to balance it, what we're really looking for, instead of balancing and saying, oh, I'm you and I'm client-centric, is we coach people and help students who go through the course create what we learn to call the we space. So when you're completely client-centric, the client will ask you about yourself, and you can speak it in terms of creating a we space instead of a me and you space. And when that happens, clients tell us they enjoy it much more, and they're more likely to buy from that person because they were curious. So instead of a balance, I go all the way client-centric, and I let them ask me what it is they want from me, like whether they need to know. Because we can go real deep on that. Like I can tell you everything about all my stuff all the way back to 7th grade, but I don't need do you really want that? So I've learned to stay focused on the client.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I don't know if Mike, he may have had to jump off, but I thought it was a good question that he threw up there. So who else? I know Kate, if you're still on, you had some questions if you want to continue to unpack there. See, Jerry, thank you for
Yeah.
joining. Good to see you, my friend. Stephen, my friend. It's been
Yeah.
quite some time. Great to see your face. Yeah, Jerry, good to see you. Yeah, we can be on video. It's okay. What are the questions? Any other question that's percolating for you that you'd like to get out here in this time that we have together?
I've got a question. Do the same principles apply when you're doing online selling, or is there any other specific things that you would say if it's not a face-to-face, if you're selling via website or something?
The only place that it's not so much the medium as it is like I've worked with restaurant equipment companies. They just can't get out of, like, it is all about the product. You know, it is like, this is the best, the Ginsu knife is the best knife. It slices and dices, it makes julienne fries, it does everything. So it's more about the offer than it is whether you're selling online. And one of the things that I'll say specifically there is I've worked with some people. I have one right now who's a venture capital firm, and we reorient their online presence to being client-centric so that the client reads themselves and, like, they automatically place themselves in the website. Oh, they're talking.
Well,
Oh,
thank you
great.
all for joining today. For those of you that are watching afterwards, thank you so much from all of us here at the Client School, and we will be together again in future conversations.